In this session, we're going to work with triggers and collisions. So let's begin. Let me create another C# and call it, for example, the collider. And then here I'm going to make a sprite of capsule. So let's wait until the code is compiled. Okay, we have this capsule. And I want to rotate it, and I do this by changing the value in Z. For example, I say 90 degree. It's in the game view. Okay. And then I'm going to change the size. And I bring it here and I give it a rigid body. So it would fall down according to gravity. Then I'm going to give it a collider. Box collider is, oh no, what was that? You can change that according to your needs. Okay. And then I'm going to change the color to something beautiful like, no, 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 no. Yes, this is very beautiful. So that is my, for example, something that would fall down from the sky, and it would fall down on the head of the enemy and to destroy them. Or, for example, your enemy, for example, there's a trap inside your game, and you want that when your player gets closer to that, it will fall down and damage your player, destroy it. So, we have this, and I give the collider code to that. You can open it here, or just if you click on that, it will guide you to there. Or you can directly double click on that and it will be open. So the only thing, so let's get rid of them. The cool thing is that you don't need to memorize that. For example, you want collision, just type a little bit of word of that and then collision. Okay. And you know that, for example, on collision, yes, enter 2D. It means that when the player enters to the collision, for example, of the other object, if something happens, and when it exits of that collision, something happens, and if it stays on that collision, something happens. So now we want to choose this one, and if I click on that, it would just write me the whole code. So that is the parameter that it has, collision 2D collision. You can change the name to other or anything, it doesn't matter. So I want to say you different ways that you can detect the other objects in the game and, for example, do something to them to imply damage to them or to destroy them. So this, I want that when it hits to something, it destroys them. So the first thing is that I say if collision, it means something that has collided to. For example, it means this if it collides with it. This has a code, so any other things are called collision. We mean not this, but we mean this or this, okay? So now we say if collision dot game object dot compare tag. So according to tag of the game object, we're going to sorry, we're going to call them, for example, Suppose that this has a tag of player, player. So I need to. In this case, I want that when it collides with that, for example, to destroy the player. It's so harsh. It doesn't actually, decrease the health, but it's gonna smash and destroy that, because that is very simple for our current game. Then later I tell you how to decrease the health of the player, because at first we have to declare the health system for the player, which currently we don't have. So then we say destroy. We can say game object, that's fine. If we say something like this, two things happen. If I say game object, it means a game object that has this collider script. It means this. So that's why I have, but if I want that this destroys, then I have to say collision that's game object. It means that the player should vanish and be destroyed. So be careful of that. So let's try put it here. Oh, let's move it aside. No, we don't have anything to do with you right now. So, did you see that? Now, if I say just game objects, let's see what will happen. Let me give it a color. Oh, blue is a very original color. Okay, so did you see the difference? So be careful about that. This for destroying this, and actually this one that has the script. And if you say collision that game object, it means the player. Okay, because it means the players, and it destroyed this. So is that the only way that I have to always give a tag to different things? Because when you say add tag, and then you have a big list of items here. So for player, that's fine. You can use tag because you always have one player. You can also manipulate things according to their name. So if there is a thing that has a specific name, for example, where is our the triangle? Let's call it enemy. So that's our enemy. Okay. So let's move that apart. We have the enemy here. Now that's we want. Of course, we can give it a tag like the enemy, and then, for example, here, if I say enemy, then all I think is like the same. We'll destroy that, but we're going to select it according to his name. Okay, so here, instead of writing that, we should say, let me delete that. It's very good practice to always rewrite the code again. Say if collision. It's a very good practice to check if it is not null, but here we assume that we have something. So collision dot game object, it means that we are working with the game object itself, that is the enemy game object name. So we directly want the name of the game object. If the name of the game object is, what is the name? And for example, we say enemy 1. Okay, then then destroy it, honey. Collision that game object. Okay. So that is, imagine that we have more enemy. Now this has a different name. The name is also shown here and here. Okay. And the enemy 2 is, yes, with this color. So let's see what happens. Bang! Did you see that? So only the enemy that exactly has this name was destroyed. What if I call this enemy 1, 2? Yes, both of them are destroyed. But, working according to the game object, because the name might change during the game. So I don't recommend that. Instead, it's better that you use layer. It means that everything, for example, I add a layer and call it enemy. Enemy, yes, okay. And no matter what's the name, for example, 2, and I assign both of them to enemy, okay? They have different names, but they are on the same layer. So I'm going to change if collision that game object dot layer equal layer mask dot layer to name. Okay, name of the layer. It should be exactly the name of the layer, which was enemy. Yeah. What? This is name to layer. Just be careful, okay? Then again, do that. Of course, for the single line codes, you don't need that. So, but it's a good practice to put it here. So now let's go and see what happens. You saw that? Both of them, although they had different names, but as they were on the same layer, they were destroyed. Later, for example, that your player has a sword and want to, for example, attack the different enemies which have different name. If he raises sword and tries to hit them, if they are on the same layer, then all of them are actually get a damage. So that is one of the usages. So are there the only ways that we can, for example, to assign, to specify which one of the things that has a collider we want to select them and do things? No, there are countless other ways. But the things that I've told you are more common between the game developers. For example, there are other things like if let's tell you quickly. If collision that game object that tag that contains, for example, enemy, then it means that, for example, you have a tag that is called enemy 1, enemy 2, enemy 3, which I don't recommend to have such a very messy thing. But if they have somehow the word enemy inside them, it can manipulate them as well. So that is one of the way. Another cool feature, for example, you want to say, okay, different things, different game objects are moving with different speed and velocity and speed. You want to say, for example, if they have more than, for example, 2 velocity or I say velocity, more than 2 speed, then you want to destroy them. For example, you're a police and you say, okay, these are the cars, and if they have more than this specific speed, I'm going to smash them and kill them. So let me make this very tiny game. This is fun. So here in the rigid body, let me make the gravity scale 0 so that they can move without falling down. So we have these two, and let's add another one. That is enemy 3. You can say car 3, anything that you want. And I give you the color, and I change the color to black. Black is a very bad color, but it doesn't important. It's not important. And then you have the enemy 3. Okay. They all have rigid body components. First, I'm going to get their rigid body. Let's give it a name. Rigid body of who? The collision, something that we collide to, okay? Collision, that's rigid body. Then you say, yes, good, if RB is null, it means that they have a collider, because if it don't have, they have a rigid body, because if they don't have, then when the code is executed and you say, okay, they don't have this, then you'll see a bunch of errors. So it's good to always check for null, okay? And say, and another condition, RB that's velocity, that's magnitude, is more than, for example, 3, then it means that they are moving very fast and the police has to stop them. Then we say destroy collision of the game object. Yes, that's simple. They're destroyed. So let's first make a script for enemy. I say enemy. That's not a good naming, but for now, that's fine. So here, we don't need to update, because at first, when the game starts, I want that it moves. As it doesn't change the direction, so we don't need to update. So first, I would say private rigid. Sometimes the Visual Studio, I don't know, 2020, 2022 has problems. I have to close it and open that again, and it worked. Maybe it is the problem is on my computer. I don't know. So rigid body. Let's wait. Yes, now this is working. Rigid body to the RB. Okay. And I see RB is equal to, what did you do to, oh, actually it's showing the answer because, okay. So what did you do to get a components that is on the enemy itself, or the game object itself? We say get components, and the, okay, we say get components. Yes, rigid body to the, okay. So first we got a rigid body. Then at the start of the game, we want to give it a speed and a velocity that would go until the end of the game. You might say, okay, why not in the start? Because it's not going to be, we don't want to control it. We don't want, for example, using the input so that the player could control that. We just give it at first a speed, and then it goes. We don't do anything. We don't change the direction. We don't change the behavior. And so we say we want to, when that it moves, RB dot velocity new vector 2 x and y. For the x, yes, move. what for. But for the y, we don't want that it moves upward. No. Then I give it 0. Or, for example, if I want that it has the initial y, then I say, because if I say 0, all of them would come to 0 position. Maybe it is here, and all of them has the same height, but I want that they have the original height that I gave them. So I say RB, that's velocity, that's y. There's something that normalize means that it has consistent speed no matter the direction. So yes, and then the speed, which I'm going to say int speed is equal to, but as I want for each of them to, because if I want, for example, for each enemy I give a speed, for example, I say 2, and then give it to the first enemy, then 3 for the second enemy. But I don't want to do that. I just say public or serialized field private. So I can change the inspector. I give the same code to those 3 enemies and just change the speed in the inspector. Okay? So we have one code, but that is flexible and that is used for different things. We just change the values. But for the initial one, just give to F. I'm sorry, you can use float. Float is better. And yes, so when the game starts, all of them will move with this speed. But don't forget that you give each of the, you can, it was the enemy code, and we have to give it to them, to this, we have this, okay. So let's see what would happen at first. Okay, they move something like this. I went at the 2, has 4, and the second one has 8. And then see what happens. Yeah. So let's activate it again. And going to its code. So actually all of them should be stopped. So say 7. If someone has the speed more than 7, magnitude is kind of speed, is more than 7, you have to destroy that. And you know which bad boy we have to destroy? Did you see that? Which one was very fast and dangerous to the people? So, yeah, did you see that? It destroyed the first one. This police officer destroyed the first. Actually, the second one just went away. It wasn't destroyed, but due to the forces, it just, you know, walked away. So yeah, the collision can work for something like this, and it also works for for the triggers too. They're the same, but I give most of the examples for this one. So for that one, actually, you have the same things, the same concept. So that was another way that, and there are also some other usages, but you might not really need that as a beginner. So let's move on the next topic. We want to work on the uh, trigger. On trigger, just say t. So this is for 3D, but this is for 2D. Just listen to the like the differences. This is collision 2D, but that is collider 2D. If both of them have this name, or you can change the name, it doesn't matter. So on trigger, at least one of the objects should have checked. For example, is trigger should be checked. If both of them are actually called a collision, then it means that they have physical interaction. For example, this is good for stopping something so that they couldn't pass together. But for something like coin, when a player gets close to the coin and hits that, we don't want that the player be get back by the coin or just couldn't pass through the coin. We want that the coin would be something that the player can pass through. Um, Actually, this is the case that you're full by the coin, and you have lots of them, and you can't collect anymore. So the coin is there, but you don't want to be stopped by that game object. Because usually when you, for example, in the coin example, when you reach that, you just collect it and the coin is destroyed and the score is plus plus, then it means that it is added to your score. Or for example, there is a ghost in your scene, that is an enemy that you can, of course you can hit that, but you can also walk through the ghost. You don't want to be stopped by a ghost. So that's why we check is triggered for the ghost collider. And the codes are the same. There's no difference. Beside that, there is just be careful of this. Just be careful that it is collider and that is collision. Yeah? Now let's give an example. As I've made the plane, this one, the glider, is triggered. Then I want that, let's say, if collision game object dot layer equal to layer mask that's name to layer. What was the layer name? It is the enemy layer. It should exactly has the same spelling. Enemy. Okay, if it collides, I'm sorry, what is that? Then we want, for example, if it collides to that, then we want to change, let's do something fun. We want to change the color. To change the color, we have to go to which component? Ah, this has the color. What's the name of the component? The sprite renderer. So we're going to manipulate that. So we want something for a sprite. I'm a little bit lazy to just, yes, it would correct it itself. And I say SR, which is sprite renderer, then equal collision dot save collision here. We want to work with the game object, which is this R. And we want to get component of the sprite renderer. And we say get component, which one? The sprite renderer. Okay. So we want something of the type of sprite renderer, so we have to give it something that has the type of a sprite renderer. And we want something, for example, in this layer, everything that has collided and has the enemy layer, we want that game object, and then to get its component that is a game object that is a sprite render. Then we say, for example, we might have some enemies that doesn't have any sprite render, which is weird, but so we have to check if it is null or not. If it was null, then you don't do anything, just return. But if we have a sprite render, then we say SR. We want to change which one? The color. It is here. You can manipulate all of them. Just get the name of the game component, and then this one, this parameter. Like that we have in transform, we could change the position, rotation, and the scale. For the sprite renderer, we want to manipulate the color. That color is, so the color would be that's black. Okay, so let's see that in action. action. Oh, did you see that? That was amazing, I think. Because it gives you the game ideas. For example, in your game, you want to make something like that. For example, um, some people there are, that is a container of mud, and when the the racers or the cars, when they actually try to move from this path, so the mud would goes on them and they turn black and dirty, and then after some seconds, which has a code for that, then they gain their real an original color. So it might give the game idea. You have to be creative yourself. No matter that you're working a 2D or 3D game, you use these triggers and collisions a lot. For example, for opening a doors, for opening a chest, for there are many examples. Or for example, if the enemy just shoots you fire, most of them use this concept. So that was a very important thing, although it was kind of simple. So yes, I think that it was enough for today. So practice these concepts. See you later.